Hello everybody, this is Chris Singwald, Clay Studio Manager at Artistry. I've been asked to show you guys a really simple project that you can probably do at home if you got some clay. What I'm going to be doing is utilizing a slab of clay and some household objects to make a tray with some foam that we have. You could do this with any kind of foam thing that you can push in with that you guys might have around the house. So the first thing is to make a slab of clay. You can do this a number of different ways, but if you don't have a rolling pin, you can just start by having the clay be in a ball and then just start to flatten it out. And it's good to, I'm kind of using the palm of my hands, not so much the fingers, because if you're making imprints with your fingers, it'll be harder to smooth things out. So kind of get it to a good consistency that's probably like an inch or so. And then you can use any kind of surface that the clay is not going to stick to. This is just drywall that we had because we've been doing construction in our basement. And what you do is you grab the clay. I grab it from the left side and I rotate it so that my hand's on top. And then I throw it down on the board, but I'm not throwing it straight down because if I do that, it's going to be thicker on the inside and thinner on the edges. And as long as I'm turning it like this, then the clay it doesn't have it go, it doesn't stretch in one specific direction. And this just takes a little bit of time. And then if I feel like it's getting a little thicker on the inside, I can always go with my palm and kind of push down in the middle and kind of get that clay going to the edges. So whenever I'm making a slab, I always think of my buddy David Swenson because he makes really great slabs without needing a slab roller or a rolling pin. So that's kind of a fun thing if I'm making slabs in my studio. So the slab is a little bit thinner, and then the clay particles are kind of all over the place right now. It was just a ball of clay. Now we've kind of flattened it out, so they're not really aligned. So what you want to do is have a rib, or maybe it's a piece of metal or a piece of plastic that has a nice edge to it, and you want to kind of go 3 different directions whenever you're working with slabs. I always tell students you go from the top down, and I'm going across the whole piece of clay, and it's okay if you go back, and then you go side to side, and then go diagonal, corner to corner. And what this does is it kind of aligns those clay particles. It kind of gets them, instead of being all over the place, it kind of gets them to kind of layer like bricks. And you want to do that to both sides. If you don't do that, you might have some stretching with the clay, and this just kind of makes it stronger, and it also aligns those clay particles a bit. So I'll do that a couple times, and just for the sake of the video, I've prepped some slabs already. So you want to make sure that you're doing this and you're kind of flipping it over and kind of getting it to the way you want it to be. So I spent probably a good 10 minutes on the 2 slabs I've already made. So, but get it so it's a nice strong slab. And then dry it out. We just used a hair dryer, but you can also leave it out. And just make sure if you're leaving it out, flip it every 15 minutes or so. And just kind of, you want to make sure that the clay is a little bit stiffer, because if the clay is dry or if it's really wet, it's not going to hold the form when we make the imprint. So, and then we found some stuff around the house. These are just Dixie cups. And we decided here's a popcorn container, and you can either probably going to use the bottom of it. You might be able to use this. The main thing is that you want it to be made out of something that's not going to stick to the clay. So plastic is not good. A lot of times in the studio we'll have pieces of wood that are different shapes. So that works really well because the wood isn't treated or anything, so it'll release from the clay. You don't want something sticking to the clay, because it won't make it through this process. So here's one slab, and it's dried out a little bit, so it's going to hold its form a bit better, and it's not going to hopefully it won't crack when we make the impression. So we're gonna use this on this slab, and what I'm gonna think about here is this is gonna end up being kind of a square, and I'm gonna just kind of, I gotta be careful because you can see as I'm moving it around, it's making these marks. So if you have the type of personality that I do, you want to clean up those marks just a little bit. But I'm gonna put them down, and then I can change the shape if I want to. I don't have to be stuck with this slab. So what I'm gonna do is kind of add some some curves to this. So I'm gonna just make a little bit of a mark like this. And then this. I'm going to do the same thing on these sides. Doesn't have to be perfect. And actually, if you want it to be, just take a little extra time. And then I'm going to just use this fettling knife. You guys can use a butter knife. Do whatever you want. And I'm taking away the excess clay. And I'm just doing it a little bit at a time. And I'm not pushing down on the surface because the clay is going to cut pretty easily. And you notice I kind of drew it out, and now I'm cutting different smaller pieces. There's no need to make one whole cut and have that pressure of getting it just perfect. That's why I kind of like taking different sections off. Here's this. And then just takes a little bit of time. Kind of feel like Bob Ross right now. Happy little trees, happy little pieces of clay. And then you'll want to clean up those edges right away. So I just take my finger and go along it. And that'll help a lot. And don't forget to do it on the other side as well. Just kind of softens it up. If these projects get fired and they have that edge, then they're going to be really sharp when it's all done. So I'm going to just take a little bit at a time. Just make sure that we don't have any sharp edges right now. You can always go back and clean it up once things have dried. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm just going to show you the technique now. And we have these different pieces of foam. So we're going to put the clay right here. And you want to make sure that the foam is clean, otherwise you might have things stick to it. So there's the slab. If you wanted to sign it, you can sign the back now or when it's dried out a little bit more. So, and then I'm going to just try to kind of match these up. Seems like that's pretty good. And then I'm just going to push down on it and then bring it back up. You can see this isn't the best thing. The clay is kind of sticking to it, so I'm going to just give it a little bit of time, making sure I don't tear the thing or the clay. And that's the beginning of something that's a nice tray. So the sides will come up. And if I wanted to, I could try to go back or just do an individual cup and make sure that those circles are a little more defined. But you can see, since the clay is a little bit stiffer, it'll hold the shape. And you can also add things to the edge. Like I always use the back of this. If I wanted to continue with the circles, I could do something up here. One of the hardest things to do is decide when to stop. So sometimes it's good to kind of make some marks and kind of give it a little bit of time. You can work on another project. And you got to think about decoration as well on that. So just a starting point, but it's kind of a nice technique. I'm going to just show you two different things real quick. So what I'm gonna do is just make this an inch bigger. And I'm gonna just freehand it, because otherwise this is gonna be forever. Okay. And I'm still not gonna try to take this off in one shot. I'm gonna take a couple of different pieces. And then I'm gonna just make sure that down here is already cut so it'll release. And then this is just much simpler. I've got a little bit of a rounded edge there, which is actually kind of nice. Again, I'm gonna smooth that. And these, again, these were already compressed. I had already prepped the clay. So it's really important to use that rib tool or something flat to compress the edges. So, and then again, we're gonna have this. I'm gonna make sure it's centered. You can do it off-centered too. That's not a requirement. It's just my personality. And then I'm gonna push it down. And hopefully this releases. And then that's a little, that could easily be like a little spoon trivet, spoon rest. Something you can do, kind of something pretty easy. You can really go crazy with the technique. I'm just kind of introducing you to it right now. Something you guys can kind of play with. And what's nice is you can like line these up and prep, 10 pieces and just go, go, go. And by the time you're done with the last one, the first one, you'll be able to mess with a little bit more. So that's a really simple technique. You guys can give it a try at home if you got some clay. Otherwise, stay safe, wash your hands. We're all in it together. Take care.